As I have mentioned a few dozen times in this space, a warmer Earth is a wetter Earth. Increased evaporation as the planet warms generates more water in the atmosphere. What goes up must come down, so that water temporarily suspended in the atmosphere falls out of the atmosphere in the form of precipitation. A relevant article in Reuters published on May 12, 2024 is headlined, "Historically Wet Winter to Damage UK's Food Self-Sufficiency," says think tank. Here's the lead. Quote, Britain's ability to feed itself is set to be reduced by nearly a tenth this year as farmers across the country reel from one of the wettest winters on record, an energy and climate think tank said on Monday. End quote. The article continues, quote, heavy rain in the winter months left vast swaths of agricultural land saturated, with many arable farmers unable to plant crops and losing those that were in the ground. Analysis from the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, a nonprofit organization that studies energy and climate change issues, estimated that the projected reduction in key arable crops as a result of lower crop area and poor yields will reduce UK self-sufficiency by 8 percentage points when measured by volume, declining from an average of 86% between 2018 and 2022 to 78% this year. End quote. The article begins with a summary that includes this information. 1. Wheat self-sufficiency is seen declining to 68%, Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit says. 2. Oilseed rape self-sufficiency is seen collapsing to 40%. And 3. More imports could hold back decline in food inflation. This latter item is clearly intended to pacify the readership. The, quote, more imports that could hold back decline in food inflation, end quote, will not appear out of thin air. At what point does an empire lose the ability to extract food and other important items from its territories? The Reuters article indicates that, quote, the UK could be dependent on foreign imports for around a third of its wheat, with wheat self-sufficiency estimated to decline from 92% in the same period to 68%. The Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit said. Self-sufficiency in oilseed rape is estimated to collapse to a historic low of 40% from 75%. Farmers also expect poor harvests of potatoes and onions. End quote. The brief mention of potatoes reminds me of a t-shirt I saw long ago. The graphic on the t-shirt said, quote, you say potato, I say vodka. End quote. Back to the article in Reuters where we read, quote, less domestic production and more imports could hold back the decline in food inflation, which hit a 45-year high of 19.2% in March 2023, but had fallen to 4% in March this year, according to official data. The article in Reuters closes with a quote from a land analyst at the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, quote, in 2021, the government warned that climate change was the biggest medium to long-term threat to our food security. This analysis suggests that it is the biggest risk now, not at some far-off point in the future. End quote. This information reported in Reuters has important implications for all of us on Earth who like to eat. However, I have two rare bits of good news. First, from The Guardian on May 16, 2024, comes this headline. Ron DeSantis signs bill scrubbing climate change from Florida state laws. That's correct, folks. The state of Florida in the southeastern corner of the United States of denial will ban offshore wind power, boost natural gas, and reduce gas pipeline rules. In fact, the subhead refers to these factors in the state that had its hottest year since 1895. Florida, quote, will ban offshore wind power, boost natural gas, and reduce gas propane rules, end quote. DeSantis, the governor of Florida, quote, said the bill rejected the agenda of radical green zealots, end quote. I want to make sure you understand exactly how ridiculous actions in Florida have become with legislation such as this. Here's the lead of the article in The Guardian, quote, climate change will be a lesser priority in Florida and largely disappear from state statutes under legislation signed by the state's governor, Ron DeSantis, in a move which experts say ignores the reality of Florida's climate threats. End quote. The article correctly points out that, quote, Florida is facing rising seas, extreme heat, flooding, and increasingly severe storms, end quote. The legislation, quote, also boosts expansion of natural gas, reduces regulations on gas pipelines in the state, and increases protections against bans on gas appliances such as stoves, according to a news release from the governor's office, end quote. Here's the bottom line from the article in The Guardian, quote, the measure signed by DeSantis would also launch a study of small nuclear reactor technology, expand the use of vehicles powered by hydrogen, and enhance electric grid security, according to the governor's office, end quote. Small nuclear reactor technology is a terrible idea if you're a fan of life on Earth. Expanding, quote, the use of vehicles powered by hydrogen, end quote, sounds like a good idea unless you understand that hydrogen is a carrier of energy, not a source of energy. Anybody paying the slightest attention has known this for more than a decade. Finally, the notion that the DeSantis administration will, quote, enhance electric grid security, end quote, while blatantly ignoring myriad facts is yet another bag of garbage thrown onto an enormous trash fire of the same. The Florida director of the Nature Conservancy is quoted in the article in The Guardian based on what he told the Washington Post. The new measure is, quote, very much out of line with public opinion. We're seeing flooding and we're seeing property damage and we're seeing hurricanes. And we're turning around and saying, yeah, but climate change isn't really real and we don't need to do anything about it, end quote. Although the Guardian routinely ignores and downplays the severity of the climate crisis, the renowned media outlet correctly reports the facts in this story. I'll now turn to a story at the Associated Press published May 15, 2024, and headlined, Hot History, Tree Rings Show that Last Northern Summer was the Warmest Since Year One. The Associated Press article refers to a peer-reviewed journal article in the renowned outlet Nature. The peer-reviewed paper was published May 14, 2024, entitled 2023 Summer Warmth Unparalleled Over the Past 2,000 Years. I'll read the abstract, which quotes many other peer-reviewed papers. Quote, including an exceptionally warm Northern Hemisphere summer, 2023 has been reported as the hottest year on record. Contextualizing recent anthropogenic warming against past natural variability is non-trivial, however, because the sparse 19th century meteorological records tend to be too warm. Here, we combine observed and reconstructed June to August surface air temperatures to show that 2023 was the warmest Northern Hemisphere extratropical summer over the past 2,000 years, exceeding the 95% confidence range of natural climate variability by more than half a degree Celsius. Comparison of the 2023 June to August warming against the coldest reconstructed summer in 536 of the Common Era reveals a maximum range of pre-Anthropocene to 2023 temperatures of 3.93 degrees C. Although 2023 is consistent with a greenhouse gases-induced warming trend that is amplified by an unfolding El Niño event, this extreme emphasizes the urgency to implement international agreements for carbon emission reduction. End quote. In other words, our overheated planet continues to warm. As I have reported previously in this space, various proxy records indicate the ongoing overheating of Earth is unprecedented in planetary history. Even the Design to Fail Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has concluded Earth is in the midst of the most abrupt planetary heating in planetary history. Tossing facts aside, I now turn to a self-proclaimed scientist as he responds to the article published in Nature. Michael E. Mann was not part of the study in Nature. Nonetheless, he was quoted by the Associated Press article. Mann is frequently quoted by this particular writer, especially to incorrectly indicate that we are not in a climate emergency. The scientist turned politician who published the famous hockey stick graph more than 25 years ago took issue with the peer-reviewed paper in Nature. Specifically, he said relying on tree rings is, quote, considerably less reliable, end quote, than looking at other proxy data. Is it considerably less reliable than relying on man's computer models? Never mind that dendrochronology has been used for more than 120 years. Never mind that it can identify the occurrence of events not only to the exact year, but sometimes within a season of a year. Never mind that this article in Nature was published before it was fully formatted because it has been deemed critically important. Despite all these valid reasons to accept the evidence presented in this peer-reviewed paper, scientist-turned-politician Mann took issue with the peer-reviewed paper in Nature. I cannot imagine the age of his teenage daughter would have anything to do with Mann's conclusion. After all, that would be unscientific.